But then I'll remember 3 days from now to turn back.
Y'all ready? Good afternoon, everyone. It's 3 o'clock. Call to order work session of City Council for April in 2023. We have everyone on the dais, and so we'll get started. On Thursday, we'll have our roll call by Ms. Marsh, Maria, invocation by Mr. Rodriguez, pledge of allegiance by Councilwoman Landry. Our first agenda item, and awards and presentations, the proclamation for April as Fair Housing Month, and we'll turn it over to Matt for that. And also, we'll go to our city manager report. Sir?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of council. It would just be a few items. The wastewater master plan scope has been finalized, and we're currently reviewing the contract for cost and also for scope of work. So hopefully we'll be able to issue that pretty soon. Garden Canyon Linear Park Phase 2 88 paths at St. Andrews, and that bid is being worked on by procurement, so we'll be going on that pretty soon. The Ramada replacement at Veterans Park has been awarded to K&G, estimated completion by June 30th. And then the fleet restroom down at the yard, we're still having issues with. Our first quote was $60,000 over budget, and this next one was better, only $40,000 over budget. So
20 to the good, right?
So we're still looking at options for how we can get that done, because certainly we need to do that on behalf of the staff. As you're aware, the food tax bill was vetoed by Governor Hobbs last week, so that's helpful to us in the budget. But the rental tax has resurrected itself in the form of a striker, and is back on the table right now in the legislature as well. So Victoria is following that very closely. And finally, with regrets, I'll be announcing Thursday the retirement of Chief Adam Thrasher from the Sierra Vista Police Department, which is in effect middle of July, I believe, Chief. Is that the time frame we're looking at? So, and obviously Deputy Chief Kosmider is retiring in May, so a lot of changes in store for the police department here soon. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry to hear that, Chief. Just like I said, I'm coming down to play dodgeball.
I still have to do a reference check for him.
I understand.
So I might be able to stop this.
I am getting a
Those
new job,
background
so-
checks normally take, what, 6 months?
6 months.
Maybe 10.
So we'll proceed on. We'll do that consent agenda. Councilwoman Messmer, item 2. Then we'll go to our new business. First one.
Oh, may I just add something?
Go ahead,
to
yes.
We don't have the work session meeting minutes because we're not supposed to be having a meeting right now normally. So Maria asked for one more week to get those on the next agenda. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Which will normally happen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
You're welcome.
And we go to our new business. Turn on Matt. Staff report.
Housing resolution?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So each April, HUD and local communities across the country celebrate Fair Housing Month. The resolution before you affirms the city's commitment to furthering fair housing and to fulfill our obligations as a recipient of community development block grant funding. In prior years, I've been asked, how many of these complaints that do we receive? And my answer has always been none. So fortunately, this hasn't been a significant issue in our community, and I think it bodes well for Sierra Vista. There is a contact at HUD if somebody does have an issue, and I can relay that on Thursday.
Okay. All right. Questions, comments for Ms. McCaw? Thank you, sir. Our next item, discussion of possible ordinance of 2023-02. Mr. Felix, staff report.
I can handle that one, Mr. Mayor. I don't think he's, back yet. So this is
bringing this item off of, just concluded its public comment period. So I don't think any comments were received. So this item was the city uses a third party for collection when people are not paying their sewer and trash bills. The collection agency assesses a fee to the city when they provide that service, and so this change allows us to pass on that fee to the non-paying customer instead of the city paying for it itself. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions, comments? Thank you, ma'am. And we'll go to discussion and possible ordinance of 2023-03. Mr. Pregler?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor McCaw and members of council. I'll make my comments brief. At the regular meeting on February 23rd, we presented a series of development code changes that were unanimously recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Now, no comments were received at that public hearing on this item or during the subsequent 30-day public comment period. Now, the ordinance that will be presented to you on Thursday would adopt the amendments as proposed. So to review, the amendments pertain to 4 separate articles in the Development Code. The first set relates to the administration and enforcement article, where minor changes are being included for the sake of clarity and consistency with current practice as it relates to the issuance of building permits, zoning compliance certificates, and occupancy certificates. The second set amends the special regulations for particular uses section to establish permitting requirements and performance standards for unattended donation containers. Now, these are the donation boxes in commercial areas that are not affiliated with the businesses on the parcel. The third set of changes concern the site plan review process. Now, these proposed changes will clearly delineate a 3-tier review process to be calibrated in relative proportion to the degree of impact on the community and better help developers determine the appropriate review process. Now, the final amendments deal with district regulations, where staff is proposing changes to how lot coverage is measured and reductions to residential setback requirements to provide more flexibility in home design, particularly for wider homes with 3-car garages, which is a growing trend. Now, on multifamily zone properties, the changes will also facilitate compact redevelopment with more of an urban context on the West End. The changes to lot coverage standards are in line with requirements adopted by communities that we researched throughout the state and through local analysis that we performed using GIS parcel mapping data. So with that, staff recommends that the City Council move to adopt ordinance number 2023-003 in accordance with the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. That concludes staff's report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments?
Now, I have to say that the mall has already moved their containers.
They have a all new set.
Yeah,
And they have on the
set
set,
of them.
yeah, green and blue,
Yeah.
something like that. Lime green.
I might have missed it. Did you say there were no public comments? Is that what you said? Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we'll move to call to the public, comments and requests from the council, and adjournment. And we'll proceed on. So item number A, April 6th, council meeting agenda items. Council meeting agenda items?
We just went.
Oh, yes,
Bravo now, the budget.
bravo. So, Mr. Chet, Mr. Patuchet? City Manager.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is the first of our budget
Yes, sir.
presentations. Okay. This one we were scheduled for last time, and of course, we weren't able to get to it. And the focus of this particular budget work session, which is the first in a series that you'll be sitting through, deal with our projected revenues for the coming fiscal year and the debt service that we have, which is a fixed number. The hope is to take you through the process of doing this, letting you know what the revenues are, and then subtracting out what we think is going to be. Do you have a question?
Is there any way we can make it stop just for the
annoying.
meeting?
quiet too,
Wilson
so.
will contact our construction manager and see if they can do anything.
I mean, it sounds like they're just doing it on purpose now. Go ahead, Jen.
It's like every time you
Go ahead,
said
Jen.
something.
Or at least move to another part of the roof.
It's a big roof.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Wait for it.
Do you want me to proceed?
Yes, proceed, sir.
Okay. So what we're trying to do is go through the process, and we'll use last year's numbers to finish out what we did in terms of personnel, O&M, and capital, so that you can have an idea of what the balance is going to be at the end to see, how far out of balance we may be, or hopefully we're in balance as a result. And it gives you an idea of how much discretionary funds the council has in the budget. So, of course, you have to start with revenue in order to be able to do that. Just a couple notes. Obviously, we received some help from the governor on some of our revenue sources. So in terms of future issues that we might be dealing with on the revenue front, we're still having to deal with the income tax reduction, which won't hit us for 2 years. And so they're giving us extra funds, as you'll see in the presentation, to make up for that in preparation of when that cut comes. We'll probably see a further reduction in state shared revenues as a result of census results. As Maricopa County grows quickly, we do not. The pie doesn't change, so Maricopa County continues to get more and more of that pie, so we have to assume that we'll have less. So we need to be mindful of that, as well as any potential recessionary pressures that may hit as a result of high interest rates. We're already experiencing the higher costs, obviously, just in going over projects, but so far I don't see that occurring in the state yet, but it's something to be mindful of going forward. We're also experiencing the end of our ARPA funds from COVID, so that is no longer in place, and of course that was a big help over the last couple of fiscal years. So basically what I'm saying is we're going back to a more normal budget situation where we're probably not going to see as high a sales tax revenue growth going forward. Hopefully it'll stay in a good 5 or 6% range, which we've historically been able to operate under. But all those things are things we're keeping an eye on as we go forward. So we're going to see things a little slower, but really more towards the normal end of how we usually do things. So with that, I'm going to introduce our budget officer, Jennifer Dillahay, who works very, very hard on your behalf during this time of the year. And then, of course, Victoria and I are available for questions, as well as the department heads if you have any, and feel free to break in at any time and ask. So, Jennifer.
Again, the first step in the budgeting process is to estimate revenues available for the coming fiscal year. There are 3 main revenue sources available for municipalities. First one is local revenue, made up of taxes, fees, and other financial mechanisms such as bonds. Federal revenue, consisting mainly of grants, and the last is state shared revenue, which we'll go into in detail later on. So in this presentation, we'll take a look at all 3 revenue sources in several different ways. So this slide shows what was budgeted versus what was actually received for fiscal year 22 and to date for fiscal year 2023. We see in the general fund, 46 million was budgeted in 22, but we actually received 43 million. And again, 50 million in fiscal year 23, and to date, only 33 is actually received. The biggest thing to note in this slide is the difference between the fiscal 22 and 23's total budget. Arizona state law stipulates that no expenditure can be made for a purpose not authorized in the annual budget. So as you can see, fiscal year 23, we had a lot of grant opportunities, especially in the HERF, LTAF, and the grant funds that ballooned that fiscal 23's total budget number. This also explains why
Just,
actuals,
just one quick question. What is the ending date on our FY '23 actual?
mid-March.
Okay, thank you.
So you still have a quarter.
Okay.
But this also explains why the actuals are going to be less than the budgeted amounts because we didn't receive every grant that we applied for. Yes, ma'am.
In the future, and I don't know if it's broke out more, for the HERF funds, the grant that we put in for the HERF funds, can we highlight those right on in the actual budget book? Am I making sense?
It is,
So the
it is in the budget book.
62,000,
It's also listed later on,
Okay.
kind of in the FY '23 capital budgeted items.
Roger.
It's listed out there.
Okay.
So this slide, sorry. So now we'll dig a little deeper into the fiscal '22 budget by major fund. The first column is the actual revenue, while the personnel, O&M, capital, and debt are actual expenditures. So this will give you an estimated year-end balance in these funds. Do note that these do include allocations in personnel and O&M, and it does reflect action taken in December where we moved $1 million into HERF, $1 million into CIF, and a small amount to reduce the health insurance.
And the remaining balance went into reserves.
So in the HERF fund, the $5.8 million in capital does include the carryover items for Avenida Escuela, Charleston, and the Fry Boulevard. And then we use the reserve to pay the 1.9. For LTAF, we didn't do the general fund transfer, so that's why it shows a negative balance, and we used fund reserve to pay for that. For capital improvement, we didn't have any transfers out because it wasn't needed at the time to pay for grant matches. And the enterprise fund, even though it shows a positive year-end balance, the sewer fund still has a negative cash balance but a positive fund balance due to assets. And refuse has a positive cash balance but a negative fund balance. So this shows the fiscal '23 budget by fund. Again, these are actual numbers to date by mid-March, and it shows a snapshot of where we currently are. So we show negative numbers for the end-of-year balance, but I'm not really worried about that just yet for 3 reasons. The first one is the allocations and the year-end transfers are not reflected. So we're waiting on those. Those normally happen at the end of the year. Revenue is still coming in. So city sales tax has a 2-month lag. So we'll see March's numbers in May, and the same with the state shared revenue. We have a month or 2 lag for that as well. And we're also still waiting on grant reimbursement. So we looked at where we were in '22. We have a snapshot of where we are in '23. So now we're going to move to projections for '24. These projections are calculated using historical trend analysis. So for city sales tax, we're going to do a conservative 3% increase over fiscal year '23's budget.
So where we're at, about 8%?
That's correct.
8, okay. Thank you.
Property tax, the levy rate will be proposed at 0.1056, which will generate $382,000 for fiscal year '24. Franchise fees were kept level. Licenses and permits consist of business licenses, ACO fees, right-of-way, and building permits. We have a small increase for fiscal year '24. Grants, this number will change because we're still going through grants. So this is just what's estimated so far, so that number will be changed later on. Local government payments consist of the DES contract, Fort EMS contract, and Cochise College revenue. The important thing to note is that fiscal year '22 is enlarged because of the HERF swap. So we're done with that. State shared revenue, again, we'll go into detail later on. Health and accident premium or employee premiums, and that was kept level. The ambulance fees have a slight increase for Station 4. Public safety fees were kept level. GMC revenue are fuel sales, labor, fluid, and parts charges. We increased that based off of actuals. Transit revenue, we removed the fare revenue, but the 20,000 is lease revenue. Airport revenue is level right now, but this is one that we're going to keep an eye on. And the breakdown for airport revenue is fuel sales, hangar lease, hangar electrical, tie-down lease, office space rentals, and federal grants. So the reason why the FY23 actuals are so low is because we just hit fire season, and unfortunately a good or a bad fire season means good revenue. So we'll see the heaviest revenue in May, June because of that, and maybe a little bit into July depending on when the rain starts. We do have the fuel tank conversion that's almost complete, so we'll keep an eye out for and adjust this revenue as need be. Sewer revenues are service charges and connection fees. It has a slight increase. Refuse revenue consists of service charges and mulch and compost. Parks, recreation, and library revenue. So we did a slight increase based off of actuals because performing arts, sports, and community events were higher than anticipated this year. Go, Laura. So planning revenue is abatements, vacant home registration, and we reduced that based off of actuals. We don't actually budget for plan or development fee revenue. Investment income, we kept level. Donations is, the title is a little misleading because this majority of this is organizational grants. And for that, it's like the baseball, football fields. There's a lot of PD grants and also some ACO grants that are put into this. So that one has been reduced because previous year had the ACO donation that we're not actually going to get. Sale of fixed assets are kept level. Notes payable will change depending on O&M and capital that will be going into later on in the year. And carryover will also change depending on which projects are not completed for fiscal year 23. Miscellaneous revenue is a catch-all. That's normally the SSVC rebates and the insurance deposit refunds. So that one we reduced a little bit. So right now, the projected fiscal year 24 revenue is $93,599,217.
Why do we still not budget development fees? We don't count what? Why do we do that?
David has a
Sorry.
great explanation
you're
for
here.
this one.
Mayor, council member, I'll brief. It is because two of the funds are still have a negative fund balance. We still have to build it up. And there's no projects coming forward immediately for the infrastructure, which is the only one that is starting at a zero balance now. As it was mentioned in a prior meeting, there is one road that we may be triggered that is about $3 to $4 million, which is development fee eligible, and we've got maybe $100,000 in the account right now to pay for that. So we are going to an RFP right now. It will hit this week to update the studies again, since it's been a few years since we've actually done the study, and we're now getting close to being able to go forward with new projects in it. And when that study is done, next year we'll be putting together some projections for revenues in those funds.
Thank you. Is he talking about the Buffalo Soldier Trail
Yes,
extension?
East
Okay.
Buffalo Soldier extension.
So we can pay for that with the development fee revenue? We don't need to go
If
through
we
the
had
TIP?
development fee revenue to help pay for it, yes, we could, but there isn't money in that fund to really offset the cost that we're going to incur.
Just because I don't, what's the current, what do we owe to that fund right now?
The infrastructure development fee fund has about $100,000 balance. This year it just went positive. We took the remaining funds that were in it that had to be used. They were used. $123,000 in fiscal year 22 was transferred for the Avenida Squale extension, and so we're starting to build fund balance in it as of this year.
So should we,
It will not be a lot.
Yeah. And the only money anticipated to go into that fund, which is, again, why we're doing the study, would come from tribute development. So,
Oh, okay.
so we really can't count on a lot of.
that was my, all right,
They're putting on it too, so we can't count on that
Well-
either.
okay, thank you.
I had a question. I had a question with respect, we just received information regarding the SVMPO proposal of the Theater Drive enhancement. We're gonna need some money for that. Is that gonna be taken into consideration in this upcoming budget?
They are right now hearing that bill to help pay for that
But we
at
should,
this very moment.
I
And then we'll
understand.
know.
I understand that, but we should be planning ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Said included.
I said, is that included in the numbers that we're looking at?
But we're looking at.
Without knowing yet, as Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey is mentioning, when that bill is heard, we'll know how much money is going into that, and then obviously if there's a shortfall, we'll have to budget for that. We don't know those numbers quite yet, so
All right,
when we
thank you.
do, yes, obviously, we'll need to
Yeah,
plan for
we're still
that.
revenues.
Okay.
It's happening right now. Like,
And, you
I
know,
was
for,
watching it.
I know you sit on the MPO meetings as well. It would really be helpful going forward if we can get the east extension of Buffalo Soldier to Mosen on the tip in the future. So that
It'll be on
needs
the
to be a
next agenda.
priority for us.
Okay.
I talked to her. I talked to
Yeah,
Karen
we are
about it.
both board members, yeah. Okay, thank you.
This is the promised state shared revenue slide. We received the league's preliminary numbers in mid-March. The preliminary report uses 2021 population figures. Actual allocations for fiscal year 2024 will be based off of the U.S. Census population estimates as of July 1st, 2022. And we can anticipate receiving that report in late May. So these numbers will definitely change. Keep in mind, legislature is still in session and can affect these numbers as well. So the biggest change is the state shared income tax that Chuck spoke about earlier. For fiscal year 2024, it's the first year that the state distribution is increasing from 15% to 18%. The increase in share is also related to the state moving to the flat 2.5% individual income tax rate, which is effective January 1st, 2023. So the impact of which will significantly reduce the state's income tax collections and then again the URS distributions to the cities and towns. So since there's a 2-year lag from when the taxes are levied and the year that they are distributed to the cities, we'll see a one-time offset of $2 million in fiscal year 24 and another one again in fiscal year 25 until the full effect of the tax rate hits in fiscal year 26. So that's where you'll see the one-time offset underneath that URS, which we kept level as last year.
So, and that's the income source. As you can see, it's a very significant income source to us. So in 2 fiscal years, you're actually going to see that numbers decline instead of going up. Now, because these are one-time, or in this case, 2-time, contributions or offsets in anticipation of that occurring, I wouldn't recommend budgeting that into our normal operating budget. They should be used for, one-time expenditures or projects. And in this case, since it looks like we have an obligation to extend East Buffalo Soldier Trail, that will probably be our recommendation for the use of these funds.
And we're talking the offset funds, correct, Chuck?
Yes, just the offset funds.
So we increased the state sales number to 6.5 million, which is less than what the league projected, but historically we've received less than what they've stated. We also kept HERF and VLT level, although the league is anticipating those will also decrease as well, but their numbers are still high. So these numbers will still be refined as we get that next report in late May. Fiscal year 24 debt projections. The fiscal year 20 bond issue is Schneider 1, the 22 is Schneider 2. So in 24, we're expecting to pay the 3.2 million out of the CIF fund. The FY18 refinancing is the sewer, and that'll be paid off in fiscal year 27. The fiscal year 21 annual equipment is one lease purchase for $119,000 out of refuse. All other vehicles were purchased outright to help reduce the debt.
So a point that needs to be made here as well is you're not seeing any general fund or other operating fund debt anymore. So as a result of previous budgets and actions taken by the council, we've been able to significantly reduce debt service in a number of areas. Obviously, that's been replaced with the Schneider projects, but you can see the results of those out on the street. And of course, those have a revenue and a cost reduction component associated with them as well. So our debt picture actually looks very good.
So this one shows the fiscal year 23-24 revenue comparison. Again, the fiscal year 24 numbers will be refined throughout the budget process, and especially since we're still working on all the grants, so this will definitely change.
Real quick, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
And David, whoever can answer this, why don't we list transit as an enterprise fund?
Transit?
Roger.
Oh. Go ahead, Dave.
Mayor and Councilmember Benning, enterprise funds are business-type activities that the revenues for that operation support 100% of the operations.
Okay.
Transit is mostly grant-funded. There is, your salaries are not charged to it, Chuck's, my salary, Jen's salary are not charged to it, none of Sharon's salary is charged to it. To be a true enterprise fund, you would need to have revenue, non-grant revenue to support the operations.
Okay.
And it's not set up that way.
Okay.
Honestly, never will be.
I thought it was just a fee-based fund, but okay.
Is most of, you remember, most of the transit fund is grant operated.
Right.
50% operational grant and 80 to 93% capital grant.
Okay, so, thank you, David.
FY24 projections don't include transfer, grant matches, and allocations yet. So this slide shows the breakdown in revenue and why the fiscal year 24 is 118 million less than fiscal year 23's budget.
Yeah, really.
So in fiscal year 23, we had 3.1 in ARPA funds, and then 1.4 million, 1.2 of which was that ACO donation that we didn't receive. This is a little bit of a breakdown of how much revenue we budgeted for grants in the HERF fund, and then also carry over for Avenida, Escuela, Extension, Charleston, and Fry. In LTAF, we have the FTA grants for multi-use pass and infrastructure improvements, and then the transfer ins for grant matches. Airport notes payable, 2 million was a grant match for the 8 million hangar grant, and then 1.5 for the Forest Service. We also budgeted 4 million in potential federal stimulus in the grants fund, and then the 10 million broadband study that we're not doing.
I'll ask in a minute.
So we're going to use the revenues from the previous slide to pay for the projects that's shown on this project slide. So the first one has an IT infrastructure that we use for UHF and VHF radios, the AV system in the PD and the city manager conference room, vehicles, the expansion, some carryover items, the $807,000 in ambulances. We did roof, stair, fleet repairs and general fund, and then the HERF. This is the breakdown of the projects that were for grants. So the 5.2 million for the shared use path connectors down to the West End improvement construction. Those were all HERF grants. The LTAP had 5.2 in infrastructure for curb, gutter, sidewalk, lights, and multi-use path connectors. Airport has the carryovers, and then the fuel conversions, Schneider project. Grants had the broadband infrastructure, EMS substation carryover, potential grant stimulus. Capital improvement fund is all Schneider projects, and then sewer for infrastructure and refuse for machinery and equipment. So this slide gives us an idea of what we need to focus on for fiscal year '24. Using fiscal year '24 projections in revenue and debt, and then we used the fiscal year '23 budgeted amounts for personnel, O&M, and capital. We can see a deficit of about 3.3 million, so we'll keep this figure in mind as we move through the budget process. So this slide will change with each presentation as we go through each section, and that way you'll see the progression as the budget gets closer to adoption. So that concludes the revenue and debt presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just go back to that last slide real quick, Jen. So it's not unusual for us to be in a deficit position at this time of the fiscal year. Of course, personnel will be next, and these numbers don't have, raises and those kind of things associated with them. So as we go through, if I had my little crystal ball that Jen gave me, up here, what I could probably tell you is, with raises, your personnel budget will probably increase. O&M budget hopefully will stay relatively flat. And then the differences in order to balance, unfortunately, will probably have to come out of the capital budget moving forward. So if I had my crystal ball, that's what I would tell you. I think what we're looking at going forward. So as we go through and do personnel, O&M, and capital, we'll have a clearer picture of that. And then, of course, there'll probably be some hard decisions to make at that point. But we'll try to narrow those down for you.
How many hangars and stuff at the airport are rented out and not rented out? And do we have any in kind there?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Benning, I don't have up-to-date numbers with me, but I could tell you just based on what I know, we are pretty full out there.
Okay.
Kind of went through a dip for a while, but I want to say occupancy now, there's a few of these smaller, older hangars left, and that's about it. All the newer ones are rented, all the larger ones are rented.
Okay, no in-kind space or anything like that, or agreements with anybody to have space free?
No.
Okay.
With the exception, the only one that I can think of is the Civil Air Patrol. We had agreed to give them a hangar a number of years ago, but if we were to fill up, part of that agreement is that, they would go back to doing a tie-down instead of
Okay.
the hangar.
Okay. Thank you.
Along the lines of the airport, the revenue, I see we have the gas and oil, stuff like that. I'd love to see a breakdown of what we normally feel for tanker, for helicopter, things like that, what that brings us in revenue. Where can I find that? Can I see that? Can we get that somewhere other than just fuel?
Mayor, Councilmember Rodriguez, what we get, that would take a lot of polling, because if we get data in, it's based off the tail number. Otherwise, it's a card swipe. Forest Service comes in, swipes. I know that most of our revenue is Jet A, because we pay a lot more Jet A out than we have coming in.
Okay.
So we don't have it down by what type of aircraft the Forest Service is using.
Can we just do an estimate, Dave, of, let's say, what a normal tanker?
We could try and do that. It also gets very challenging because of the cyclicality. Last year, we had a lot of revenue, over $2 million of revenue. We've been up the last 3 years. I can go back to when we didn't get $500,000 of revenue, but it is variable, but we can get you at least the jet sales the avgas sales for the pilots and that type of stuff.
I don't need a
So-
breakdown of what we've done. I just, normally, like, if a tanker comes in, right, what does that normally?
Well, that
bring
is
if
also changing because, as Sharon will tell you, they're now bringing in the DC-8s
Yeah.
and 737s, which can take 8,000 gallons in a plane load, versus where they used to have the four-prop jobs that were like half of that. So they're bringing in the
So we
bigger
ought to be
planes.
able to give you an estimate, about, how much those planes fuel at a time and what we charge. So we should be able to multiply that out.
So we're not taking anything against capital improvement fund. We left it 1.9, but that's what worries me the most with 3.3 negative. If we start taking our capital improvement funds and project it, here's what we want to do, that 3.3 is going to start going to 4, 5, and higher.
Well, Mayor McCaw, council member Benning, that's a good question because, most of the money coming out of the capital improvement now is designated to pay off the Schneider bonds. So David gives me a monthly report on the cash flow of the capital improvements fund, sales tax in, and what we're projected to pay. So when we get to the capital portion of the budget, we can provide that to you so you can get a snapshot going forward of what we think the capital improvement fund balances are. But we keep a pretty close eye on that, so it's a good question.
And then when we're talking local transportation fund, we're talking street repair too, right?
That's transit.
Transit.
That's lottery funds.
Okay.
Lottery funds and grants associated with it.
Okay.
I'm trying. Questions for?
And then I asked her later, what's next meeting is debt or?
So the next step is
No, I think.
the April 11th is not happening, so your next work session will be April 25th with capital, personnel, and O&M.
Okay.
May 9th, you'll have your balanced budget. The tentative budget book will be to you by May 26th, and then in early June, we'll do the one-on-one council meetings.
All right. Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Yes, sir. Good, Councilman. Okay.
So
Go ahead.
April 25th, we'll talk about capital improvement, correct?
No. Oh,
All capital,
O&M.
personnel, and
Capital
O&M,
personnel.
yes.
Capital personnel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So, discussion on Fab Avenue concept design.
They ain't got no chest set.
Man, I think he really wants a chess set.
Yeah, we can get into that, but
That's like go home.
bring this up. Together some slides that covers the material in our memo. The
2.4.
The main outcome we're looking for today is a consensus from council on how the Fab Avenue property should be used and improved in general terms. We can get specific, but the focus is really on the future reuse of the property. The city acquired the property in October 2020. The total site area is approximately 1.3 acres. You may recall that there was a small strip commercial building on the north end that was subsequently demolished, leaving a blank slate or a dirt lot, depending on your perspective. Today, we're going to be concentrating on the possibilities. The site is currently planned and zoned for general commercial use. If the preference is to use the property as a park or a public facility, those designations will need to be adjusted accordingly. The reuse plans provided in your packet were prepared by Stantec, an EPA-funded grant administered by the county. They offer two conceptual alternatives that are delineated into three phases as a beginning framework for discussion. The main objectives provided that were driving this process are resolving the ponding issues south of the intersection, adding public parking, centrally located public parking on the west end, and creating a vibrant, attractive space for people of all walks of life to enjoy. The first phase on both alternatives includes a pocket park on Fry Boulevard, as well as street improvements to Fab Avenue. The right-of-way includes perpendicular parking along the north side, parallel parking along the south, curb gutter, sidewalks, streetlights, landscaping that ties in with Fry Boulevard would be added as part of the construction. Within the pocket park, there would be a stormwater conveyance channel to direct the drainage to the culvert running under Fry Boulevard. The pocket park, which includes a plaza feature, is roughly 0.29 acres or 23% of the site. You can see phase 2 is mostly green space with landscape walkways, which can include graphic wall panels, public art, a movie screen wall, an arbor shade structure, of course, depending on the budget, and public preferences discovered during the design process. This area accounts for 0.41 acres or 33% of the site. And I think there was pretty much a consensus on these first two phases, indicating that we were on the right track. The cause for pause was on whether to retain or convey the phase 3 area for public or private redevelopment. This area accounts for 0.55 acres of the site, or 44%. In the concept before you, it shows the potential for private redevelopment into a live-work type of village format with on-site parking. This could, of course, be a myriad of uses under the current zoning, which is highly flexible. Concept B would extend the green space and adds a second plaza surrounded by landscaping. And I view this as more of a placeholder concept until more formal plans could be developed. We did put the plans out for public comment just over a year ago, and 84% of those who took the poll favored the public option. We also received 32 comments that offered a variety of suggestions, including making sure that there's enough parking, using the space for events and adding kid-friendly features such as a splash pad or interactive play equipment. One person cited Heritage Square in Flagstaff as a potential template for the plaza feature. Reading through the other comments, I think just people are looking for a nice, relaxed setting with artwork and seating, green grass, colorful plants, and trees. Specific equipment requests include hookups for food trucks and EV chargers adjacent to the parking, trash cans and hydration stations, chessboards, and other type of features. All fine ideas. Another comment which I've heard outside the survey is devoting a portion of the property for some type of civic use or government facility. The phase 3 area could be adapted to accommodate a building or other active uses down the road. Stantec did provide us with conceptual cost estimates for phases 1 and 2, and you can see the breakdown here. To help us get started, the city was successful in receiving an FTA grant in the amount of $365,424 to carry out the street improvements along Fab Avenue. The scope will also include the conveyance channel to resolve the ponding issue and better facilitate drainage. Once we have a future direction, we recommend moving ahead with the engineering and landscape architecture plans for the site to improve our odds of receiving a grant for funding the construction. We'll continue to collect public input along the way, of course, during the design process, as well as engaging our city commissions on the specific attributes they would like to see incorporated into the site. Again, today, we're mainly interested in kind of a high-level understanding of the council's preferences and how the property should be used. And we could get more detailed in terms of the specific amenities during the design process, again, which will engage the stakeholders in the community. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions, comments?
So,
Sir?
so for me, I look at, I mean, a mile away, we have two parks. That one, we have in the Parks Master Plan to do a lot of stuff too. So turning this into another park in that small space in time, it's kind of hard to put my mind behind. But I did have a question about the live-work area. Would we sell that area out, or how would we do that? I don't think the city should get into the rental game.
Right. So the typical approach is for the city to develop an RFP with specific objectives
Okay.
that we put out for consideration by the development community,
Okay.
and see what kind of response we get. We could offer a minimum purchase price, or we could leave it open depending on the public objectives that are fulfilled in the responses that are received. My recommendation would be maybe to set that aside for when the revitalization is further along, and we can have a higher potential of receiving the type of development that the public would want to see on that 0.55 acres.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and to your question, Mr. Benning, you know, when you look at this parcel and you think of some of the, you know, successful downtown redevelopment initiatives around the state, like Flagstaff or Cottonwood's another good example, they usually have a piece of land set aside for green space, maybe gathering and additional parking to help facilitate events and those kind of things that occur in those areas. So actually, this parcel is in an excellent location, you know, on the west side to be able to accommodate some of those things. So really, the first question that probably we need direction from the council on is, do you like the public-private concept, in which case, you know, we would either sell it or put out an RFP that kind of drove how it would be developed, or do you want it to remain totally in public hands and then be able to use that to facilitate more parking and gathering area for events and that kind of thing? Once that question is answered, then we can move forward, you know, I think in a more constructive fashion.
Yes, sir.
I think obviously from the comments from the public, that is not the way they want to go, with making it, selling it off and making it private area, leaving it up to a developer to do whatever they want on their side, where we're trying to do something on this side. I don't think that'd be a good idea. Obviously, so that first option, I don't think that would go well. We wouldn't have control of what it actually looks like when it comes to parking and things like that, because we'd have to comply with whatever they're doing on that side, development-wise, which wouldn't be us. We're not going to be, the city's not going to be landlords or anything like that, so it would have to be a outside development agency doing that thing, which would, like I said, they would, who's to say that we'd have to, they would work with us, or we'd have to work with them, or they would even consider our ideas or our side, and how would it compete with what we're trying to do or not compete, is my concern if it were to go with that route. And like I said, back to the comments, just talking to the public, they would prefer for this to all be public use, both sides of it.
Sir.
I agree with Mr. Rodriguez here with respect to this being a municipal parcel of land. I agree with the potential Phase 1 pocket part and the expansion. And the remaining, we've talked about this at our most recent strategic planning, would be an ideal place for municipal court. And that would also,
Or a museum.
Or a museum, visitor center.
Visitor Center Museum.
well, okay. I don't agree with the museum part, but I do agree with the municipal court part. We've got 2 years to work on this because we're in a current agreement with the current JP, but I think that would keep it in our hands. It would also develop the property. It would enhance that use of the west end, and that's what I would look for. Keep it in our city's hands.
Put it in the city's hands.
I actually think putting a man-made lake down there. That's what we get a lot. I think somewhere to sit, you look at places that compare to us, and people that compare us to other cities like Prescott, I hate to bring them up. You know, there's something to be said about sitting by a little lake and watching the ducks play. Like the golf course at PDS, if anyone else is a member. It's just relaxing. Gives people another reason to go down there, which is the goal of Fab Avenue Park. The area is to get people to the West End. So if we could do something in that regard and get us some kind of water feature in Sierra Vista, that might be the place to do it. Just saying.
Or a fountain out in front of the municipal court.
Or a fountain in front of the museum.
I think,
I think no buildings. I think a municipal court is served better on Coronado with the rest of the city services we provide. I think the downtown area is a place I want to go with my kids, with a date, whoever, to enjoy it. And that's the goal that we're trying to create with all this West End redevelopment. So bringing something like a water feature, I'm not talking Lake Mead, I'm talking a little pond like they have at PDS, which can be environmentally friendly and help with water drainage and water sharing. So it's something to look into, and that can separate phase 1 and phase 2 where we have that parking lot to begin with. And it just gives more reason for people to go down there. And I think that'll change the West End for the better. Think about the little kids with the little remote control boats. I mean, we don't have that. I know from Roadrunner Park, talking to the citizens,
We're in the desert.
that was one of the most things that came up was, well, put a little lake here.
I think with Roadrunner Park, that has the water already goes there. Water ponds there naturally, so that area would kind of like lend itself to anything water feature. I think it would be it's already got trees and all that stuff. This area, I think it really lends itself to like, yes, there's other parks in the area, but the parking for like food trucks would be easy to do, right? They mentioned in the comments, look at this park, right? Which is good. I like the one like the terrace seating look like where you can kind of do an area, whether it's phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3 of a terraced little seating area and a smaller stage. That you could do a lot of things there. In Sierra Vista, we don't have like a gazebo where people can have weddings and things like that. We don't have that on the municipal side.
I agree.
So I think something like that would be great. Or if you want a small little court building and then do the wedding ceremony right there, Councilman, you can do that as well.
On the lake.
Works for me.
But like a splash pad, I think the splash pad concept, not like a splash pad like we have at our other parks, right? Water feature. When I think of splash pad, I think of like when we go to Glendale where we had our league conference in the summer. They have an amazing little splash pad set up in the middle, and it's terraced. And so there's music on one side, live music, and then the parents sit around, and the parents and the kids do their thing right there, and there's space for vendors. Some are permanent, some are temporary.
I agree, and we have plans for those splash pads in other parks within the city. I think and you have a lot of people saying we're missing. I think one of the biggest things we're missing in Sierra Vista is not for kids to go to. It's for adults to go to. It's for you to take Nancy out, watch the sunset somewhere, and enjoy the environment that you're in. Some people, and I love all kids, I have 3 of them myself, some people don't want to be around kids walking in the splash pad. Greg don't want to hang out with youngins. Greg wants to take his wife somewhere, sit, feed some ducks, watch the ambiance around him, and enjoy the evening, not deal with kids. So you have to look at what we have and what we don't have. We have parks. We have places just in that 1 mile radius. We have 2 parks. Amazing. Well, one's an amazing park. One's getting there. But that's splash pad worthy. That's where kids can go play on the jungle gyms, play around the park, play on the fields, enjoy the splash pad. The families can hang out and enjoy it. We want something that ties into that concept that we're looking for in the West End of an old downtown, go visit, hang out, and enjoy, whether it's date night, whether it's family night, whatever you're doing. And we don't have that. You go into Veterans Park, you don't have that. I mean, it's a gorgeous park, but you don't have that ambiance of just being. No distractions, no dogs running crazy, kids running through a splash pad. It's just a nice place for other people to be able to go and hang out and enjoy. But it's multi-use, so depending on, I mean, we have other things going there, but we keep throwing splash pads around and splash pads around. We're forgetting a population in our city that don't have kids, don't want to be around kids, don't care for kids, and we don't have anything for them. And I'm not saying nothing against kids for the thousands watching on YouTube, but it just lends itself more of an area for conducive to a different ambient at night and during the day for what we want the West End to be, is my opinion. And I agree, splash pads are huge, and we can put one in Soldier Creek Park and it eliminates that. We get them more, and we have, I think there's 8 or 11 in the Parks Master Plan. I can't remember.
Like they have a similar park like in San Antonio, Texas, Hemisphere Park.
Yes, I've been
Their
there.
splash pad, they have a splash pad, but they turn it off at a certain time. So you're not gonna be in at 10 o'clock at night and there's kids out there because it's off.
But you could turn it on and you have a fountain. I don't know. I like Hemisphere Park. It's gorgeous. Or like the downtown park in Tucson, I think is gorgeous also, but they don't have a water feature.
And I also want to I love that people want to, the feedback, they want to make it their own. They want to, the art, in my mind, I imagine like a huge hummingbird mural or something like that, like we have on the tower out there. Something that really ties in our city, that represents our city, for something for everybody to do.
I mean, we can do painted sidewalks. I love that idea too. A lot of possibilities.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks for coming and explaining this to us. And I remember last time when we had talked about it, I think it was kind of interesting to kind of have that in our mind. And seeing that the public comments is really good too. In my mind, I feel like it should be for the people, and the people want a place. Sierra wants a place where they can go and they can hang out. And with the revitalization of the West End, having a place for people to go to hang out. And because for the West End, when the West End Fair came back, people really, really liked it and they wanted it to happen more. And so I think something like this would be perfect for that, where maybe you don't even have to close a street sometimes if they want to have something like that more often. So I think that is really great. And, definitely looking at some of the ponding issues and a lot of the ideas that the public has is really great. I have heard a lot of people talk about food truck places. I don't know if that's like the big thing right now, but I've seen a lot of cities where they have like Food Truck Friday or something, have a place where people can go hang out. And with the Tombstone Brewery, opening up, and people will be wanting to hang out there with the various changes and things like that. One of my concerns is just for parking, to make it safe, because there's a lot of parking lots in town where it's like not safe. And if you have people going out there to go with their family or whatever, that's just one of my concerns, is just having parking that's wide enough for vehicles to be able to go in and out, make it a safe place to be. But I think having it for the people and however it turns out. And then as far as like some of the landscaping things, making it desert friendly too. So, keeping that water use in mind as well. But I think it's an exciting thing to be going into.
City Manager, sir.
Yeah. Mayor McCaw, members of the council, and hearing your discussion here, it seems like there's a consensus to keep it in public hands. So I think that's a good starting point for us. And I think there's probably not a lot of disagreement in terms of phase 1 and 2. Where we're getting the parking and we're getting the drainage taken care of, and then having an area, for people to congregate in. I think the discussion is really focusing on phase 3, where I think we have a little bit of time yet to decide what needs to be done there. And there's so many great ideas out there, and sifting through them is not going to be easy. But I guess what I'm saying is we have a little bit of time before we have to decide what's going to be in phase 3.
I agree, keeping it into the public's hands. Either, we need a municipal court, yes, like a museum, okay. But then I look at how much is that going to cost the city. 2, 3, 4 million for a building nowadays. So, we have the, and state share revenues are going down. So looking future, what is it going to cost us taxpayers to build that structure? I like the parks. I do like a pond, seeing glass pond, probably with a tank on top, something like that. Yeah.
Fish?
Yeah, with some fish. Yeah.
I mean, like, does our code even allow what William's talking about? I think it might not. Like, I think.
Set code.
Policy. I mean, current code.
That's easy.
Like, splash pads are one thing. You're talking about like sitting water. Like, I don't think we're even allowed fountains. I don't.
Just the one last thing I wanted to mention is I hear this comment a lot from the public, even before this came about, is a farmer's market on the weekend, right? So we have 2 other parks down there, like you said. Which one is the best way to go with that? Because yes, the one on Thursday from that company that does it is successful, right? Whether we do that or not, or go another way for a Saturday one on the weekend, we get a lot of feedback about people that want to do one on the weekend because they're not available. The people that have kids that can't be on Thursday, can be there on Saturday. So I'm just saying, just keep that in mind. We need a space to do that because we do need that on that side of the town to bring produce to that unrepresented side of the town that's been needed. There's no grocery stores down there, right?
And we do that a different way. I don't think we do that with a farmer's market. I think we do that with enticing a grocery store to come down to the west end, not a farmer's. I mean, we have a farmer's market.
We can hold our breath
until
that happens. I don't see it happening soon.
Yeah, we don't want no
know what?
dollar store.
You can say it loud. I'll say it. We have enough dollar stores. We don't need another one.
I mean, they're catching on too and doing produce as well, but that's not what we need down there.
I just want to remind you to look at the best famous park in the United States, and that's the mall in Washington, D.C. They don't have anything but land. Granted, they have monuments and the Capitol on each end, but we can build something, a park.
There are a lot of permutations we can explore during the design process, and that's what our budget request will be, is for the engineering and landscape architecture. And again, we'll be engaging and collaborating with our commissions and making sure that it reflects the community in terms of their desires and it be novel and different and maybe attract people of all ages and backgrounds. So. Next year, the only construction that will be taking place is along Fab Avenue through the funds we received through the FTA.
Okay.
And just don't forget our chess set.
That's right. Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Dan.
Item D, we go to Victoria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Normally, Ms. Adams would have presented this to you, but since we moved our meetings up a week, we allowed her to take vacation this week, and we didn't call her back for this item. So I'm going to cover it for her. So this is partially the next step in your board and commission process, and we also added council's handbook. So there's really 2 items that we're looking at here. We're going to start with the board and commission handbook. There's a couple of points that we need your direction on for how you want your commissions, now that most of them have gone back to being city council advisory commissions, how you want us to update this handbook and proceed. I'll go through them individually so you have time to talk on them, unless you want me to brief them all up front, and then we can go back. So the first one in the board and commission handbook that we need some direction on, membership eligibility generally comes up. Traditionally and in the past, you've required commission members to live within the Sierra Vista postal boundaries. There's a couple commissions that are required to live within the city limits by state statute, but you have expanded, or city council in the past has allowed residents of the postal boundaries, meaning like Sierra Vista Southeast, which is not within the city limits, but they're very close, Fort Huachuca and so on, to serve on commission. So that's the first question for council.
Yes, sir.
I think with the difficulty that we've experienced in the past, getting, full cooperation and full councils, I believe that we should allow people that are within the Sierra Vista postal boundaries to participate. I think that's the only way to go, because otherwise it's too limiting. And also,
I agree.
you know, they also have a lot to add, because they may not be in our city limits, but they're part of our city. So that would be my recommendation, but I'm only one of other people up here, so that would be my
Mr. Mayor
recommendation.
neglected to make the point that people who live outside the boundaries could still participate as non-voting members. They'd be able to participate in everything the commission does except for voting.
I agree with Mr. Johnson. Yeah, we don't want to limit those great minds.
I think those great minds can still show up.
Do you see us having an influx of people that we're gonna have to, like, well, you don't live in our, we have to do it that way? I don't see that.
I mean, looking at the current numbers, I don't see it either, but it goes back,
Yes.
and I'm gonna use what somebody said. I'm sorry. Go ahead, and I'll say it afterwards.
Okay, so, I think that we should allow outside of the postal boundaries, and just because it was our last commission, of the youth commission meeting that I went with Mark, that, you know, we have students that are outside of that boundary, and that would limit them from participating or coming. And, you know, and then it just, again, you know, we're all part of Cochise County, but, you know, we do need to involve all the citizens that we can to help our city and everything. So I'm with Greg also that, the further out we can go, the better.
Sir?
Okay, I agree, people can participate and people can do things. Same reason why no one on this dais lives outside of the city and votes on matters. It's pertinent to where we live and play. And I'll bring up what Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey said in 2 weeks ago, the last council meeting, to one of the young men that was pushing the meet and confer. They don't even live in Sierra Vista, and they're pushing this stuff, or they're pushing this on us. It goes to that same effect. Whether you live outside the city or don't live outside of the city, you can still participate, you can still be involved, but I think voting members, just like voting members on this dais, have to or should live within the city that are voting on matters that affect our property taxes and the things that we're paying, which they pay the same property tax, so it don't really matter. But
they're not making policy.
Huh?
But they're not making policy.
some of them are. No one's making policy but us. So it don't matter what they do or where they live in reality, but.
Right. Yes, go ahead, yes, sir.
Again, I don't care where they live, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Another demographic that's out there, and why I think it's important is, you have a lot of business owners that don't live in our city, but own businesses in our city. We need those businesses. We need to support them. And right now, they feel like, well, I don't even pay taxes in your city, so I don't have a voice. My business is in there, so y'all can tell me what to do with my business, but I can't affect anything because I don't live in your city. So those people need to be represented as well, and I don't want to ever forget them, especially those people. Not only those people, but anybody that's in the sound of our voice in the postal area. I think their voice is important. Whether they live on Fort Huachuca, they live in the Alsani County, I think it's important to hear that. And if we ever have a problem where we have people banging on the door and we have 20,000 people on a commission, then maybe we can relook at it and say, all right, okay, let's take this back a step. I don't see that happening. I think we should hear their voice, no matter where they live.
Okay, we're talking about two different things, though. We're talking about hearing someone's voice, which I don't care if you live in Douglas, I'm going to still hear your voice, and voting on matters that's going to be presented to council. It's two different aspects and two different things, in my opinion. I can have 40 people come to the Parks and Rec Commission, but I got 5 to 7 people that are actually going to vote on it that affects and lives within Sierra Vista.
I see, but
And to your point of whether I live in Hereford or Sierra Vista proper, I still pay the same taxes. There's no difference in the taxes that I'm paying. So, except for the city tax.
But like if there was a high school out there, if there was a Fry's out there, if there was a Walmart out there, we could say, why don't you deal with that? But there's not. We all use the same stuff. That's why I think that it's important to keep them involved.
And I'm not saying not to. And I'll go back. There's two distinct differences between hearing somebody and letting someone vote on matters within the city, in my opinion. So
I mean, at the bottom, the commission still comes to us afterwards, though. It still comes to the
That's
council.
it.
I understand. That's why it don't matter to me. I'm just throwing it out there to talk about it. But it goes back to, and I'll use her words, what Mayor Pro Tem said. You're trying to change something we do in the city, and you don't even live here.
But they don't make policy.
Okay, some of the commissions help
Yeah,
make
some of
policy.
these
Help make
Commissions are
policy,
gonna-
but it comes back here.
I understand that, 100%. But just like the people that come in and talk to us,
Okay.
we listen to them and try to change things. So
We can't
I'm
even
just
talk
throwing
back
it
to them.
out there. I don't care either way. Like Mark said, the number of people on some of these commissions, I don't think we'll ever have a problem.
We can't even talk back when they come talk to us. We're not allowed to talk back, so I wouldn't even include that as an example.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in favor of the postal area. I feel like they're part of our community. They have, so I'm in favor of that. Just,
As voting members.
right,
As
right.
voting members.
That's all I was gonna say, Tim.
Okay. So I think we're all consensus within the postal.
You'll get another chance to vote on it, but that's the way we'll write it up.
Yep, roger that. Okay, number two.
Second item, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So when council changed most of the commissions to department advisory, the number of commissioners was also changed to 5 commissioners. So the question is whether we want to go back to 7 members of the appointed commissions or stay at 5. And just so you know, as it stands today, with the number of commissioners who have indicated that they want to remain on commissions, and I will also say we have not yet put out a call for applicants for commissions. So the commissions today that would be fine, whether you do 5 or 7, are Parks and Rec, the Arts and Humanities, Cultural Diversity Library Commission, Environmental Stewardship, and Neighborhoods. The commissions that would not have a quorum yet for a 7-member body, which would be Cody, they have 3 currently, and Youth currently has 3, and then Transportation and Tourism both have 1 member at this point, and so either way we go, would not yet have a commission. And so the question is whether to stay at 5 or go back to 7.
I like increasing the number, especially if we're going to increase the area.
Any other comments? 5 to 7.
Do you have?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
So again, at the youth commission meeting that I filled in for Mark, so if we go to 7, then you need, if at 5, you can have 3 and there's your quorum and you can move forward. If we go to 7, which I really want because I think more, but then you're increasing the quorum, and so I don't know, I just needed to say that, but to me, it's, I don't know.
That was my same comment. I think it's commission by commission. Mine is youth that I'm affiliated with, and they're youth, so sometimes it's like herding cats and trying to get them in one place. And so I don't want to disservice them or make it harder for them. I don't want to put any other red tape onto that commission, right? So I think the lower numbers for that is fine. And then some days it overflows because nobody has practice, nobody has meetings, and they can all be there. Next month, they all have school things going on because they're at that age. And I don't want to we don't have enough to have a quorum. I don't want that problem.
Yes, sir. Mr. Johnson.
I think the issue that we're looking at with respect to the commission members, we're talking about voting members. I mean, any of these commissions can have interested standbys that would be non-voting members that could still speak at these meetings and provide input. Looking at the numbers, as Victoria just mentioned, I don't think we have a problem with 5. We might have a problem with 7. And I don't want to put any, like Mark said, I don't want to throw any barriers in the way of these commissions because of a rule change that we make here to expand to 7 members. From what I'm seeing, 5 is the number, as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Benny?
I disagree, and I'll hit why in a minute, but
Okay, you get one chance to speak now.
I'll speak as many times as I want because I have a voice. The people gave it to me, not you.
But there's Robert's rules, too.
I understand.
Let's continue.
Okay.
All right.
Then it's my time.
Go ahead, Mr. Benny.
with, and I'm asking, with quorums, who sets when it is a quorum, when it isn't a quorum?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Benning, so all of the commissions that are now city council advisory commissions fall under open meeting law. So open meeting law determines what the quorum is, how many have to be present for you to be able to continue the meeting. So because they all fall under open meeting law, you would have to have a quorum, which is 50% plus one, in order to hold the meeting.
Okay, thank you. And then 5 works for me, except for the neighborhood commission, because how many people on the West End Commission right now live anywhere else besides the West
Right,
End?
and they can, I think, they can stay on until they term out, and we'll make an exception for,
You don't want to lose anybody that's already participating,
I
I
agree.
think. So I think attrition can take care of
yeah,
those situations.
as well with the Arts, Humanities, and Cultural Diversity Library Commission.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem. You got your hand?
I agree. I think 5 members, since we're gonna let the current members that exceed that stay on, it'll be easier, because we always, it's sad when we're trying to have meetings and you hear like, oh, can't have a meeting for a few months because we couldn't get those 4 people to show up at the same time. So I think 5 is a good fit for now.
I also agree with 5 members. Any other comments? Number 3.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number 3 is term limits. This has come up a few times in the past. We included this for discussion. Currently, the handbook states that the term limits are 3 2-year terms. And then the person would have to take a 1-year break, which they could go serve on another commission before they could be reappointed to that same commission. So we just want to check with council that that is what you still want.
Comments? 3 2-year terms.
They'll be in college by then.
I've never noticed an issue with it. I've seen it. Rosie Mackey, she termed out a West End
Termed
Commission, and then, but she still came to every meeting.
Yeah. Man, I don't think we have any issue with that.
Okay.
Number 4.
Thank you, Mayor. The next is the meeting schedule. So as department advisory commissions, it was written in the handbook that the commissions would meet on a quarterly basis. And so the draft currently has quarterly meetings at a minimum, but states that work sessions or special meetings as needed could be called if desired.
Okay. I thought we was meeting once a month.
Yeah, ours has to be monthly.
No, I agree with the recommendation. Go ahead.
I'll say, again, it's commission dependent, I think.
Commission dependent.
In my opinion, for this one, for youth, it has got to be every month for us to get stuff done. There's no way to do it once a quarter, because we'll meet twice a school year or something like that, so. It's not good for us to be it has to be once a month for the youth commission.
Youth once a month. Any others? Yes, ma'am.
Well, it says at a minimum, so they have to at least meet 4 times, but they can meet as many times as they want.
Yes, as long as it states out in the.
The way it's phrased in the handbook is commissions meet at least once per quarter. So if the commission so chooses, you can meet once a month, et cetera.
Okay. Good. Any other questions? All right. Number 4, number 5.
Okay, the agenda, because again, the departments, or the commissions advise the departments, so the departments were responsible for the agenda. The way it was handled in the past as city council advisory commissions, the creation of the agenda would go to the chair, and then staff would assist as necessary and desired, distribute meeting materials and post agendas. So does council want the responsibility for creating the agenda to go back to the commission chair, is the question.
Comments?
I think that's what they're elected for, as chair, as part of their duties, probably. I mean, that's the way I look at it. If you are elected as chair of your commission, that's part of your
duties, responsibilities.
Unless you guys disagree that on the different commissions that you see something different, I don't know.
No, that works for me.
As chair is
Works
part
for
of the deal.
Yeah,
Part of
and
the
clearly there's a council liaison and a staff liaison that can assist the chair
Okay.
in putting the agenda together.
So the chair is responsible. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then something, finally, what else was in the handbook in the past that city council advisory commissions did, which we would put back in if that's what you desire, is that it was stated in the handbook that commissions would be invited to present to council at work sessions during the budget and be asked to provide any input on projects or so on. And so the current draft has that back in where the commissions would be invited to present during the budget starting in 2024. So do you want that to remain in as part of the handbook, that they will be invited to present during the budget process?
It's fine.
Fine with me.
Sir?
No problem with- I don't have a problem
Is it
with
fine?
I'm good.
You good? Yes, ma'am.
Just as an option, they're not, it's
Yeah,
not.
they
As an
don't,
option, I think it says they may be invited.
I remember it the first time, no, maybe before, when I was running the first time in 2018, I remember these presentations. Okay.
well,
I
since-
remember them, but I don't.
Since your desire is to get more input,
Yeah,
say
I
on
would like
strategic
it,
planning
but-
or budget, then,
Of course. I
you know, we used to have them come during the budget season and
Okay.
present. Obviously, we need to work with them a little earlier so we can get their ideas, you know, but, you know, we've done that in the past.
All right.
And what goes along with that is also a standing item would go on your work session agenda for council liaison reports. So that would be your time to share any updates from your commissions that you're assigned to as liaisons. We would also put that back on the work session agenda.
Got it.
Okay, that is everything. Thank you for your input on the commission handbook. The companion changes in the council handbook were also made on, I believe, page 15.
Have one more commission thing, just before we move on from commissions. When it comes to the liaisons, right, I can only speak for the commissions I've been part of. We had some really good staff liaisons that have been doing a lot of work for a long time. And I want them to, I would love if they, to them to know that they do have the opportunity to continue doing that with that commission. I don't like for them to get an email saying, hey, you're out. I got it from here, right? That's not, I don't like the way that's perceived, right?
So, am I the only one that has, oh, P and Z, you have P and Z, right? So what happens,
I know.
you still have a staff liaison, so like Parks and Rec. Miss Wilson is the staff or no, it's actually Miss Kilgore now, is the staff liaison, or is it you? It's the staff liaison, and then you have a council liaison, so you still have both parties. So that your youth commissioner, your youth staff, department head, whoever's running it, they still stay on board, they don't go anywhere. Just because we're bringing them back onto the council commission.
No. That's not the email that was sent
What email was sent?
to some of the our staff liaisons that have been helping us for a while, getting the ball rolling. They were told, no, is a senior level staff member that's gonna take over those commissions, not you. Good, thank you for your service.
Right.
Oh, that's, okay, so,
That's
and
what
I
you
don't
to
know
me
how,
now. I
I don't know
don't-
who's running the youth commission
Right,
department.
but like
whatever,
for instance, for mine, that doesn't do the youth commission any service, because I need somebody who's gonna do work, not at the staff, not at a senior level. They're not gonna go out there and drive a truck when we're doing cleanups. They're not gonna go and order shirts for us, things like that.
Well,
I
no,
don't see
Miss
that
Wilson
happening.
does it.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Miss Wilson does it.
But what I'm saying is, I would have liked to have said, hey, here, have a sit down with our liaisons, like, hey, do you want to continue doing this? Rather than saying, hey, you're out, thanks. I don't like the way that was handled. I don't think it was handled well, so maybe we can look at that again.
Okay.
Who sent the email?
Where did the email come?
Staff, I don't know.
We're doing that.
Sir.
I didn't do that.
So if we could just take a look at that, please. I would appreciate it. Because I don't want any staff liaison that has been doing work to feel like we want them out or not to be a part of it anymore, because they've done a lot of stuff for these commissions on their own before we restructured and this happened to where it became a
I'll look into it.
Yes, sir.
senior staff level that had to be there instead, which that was not part of the deal that I was expecting. So if we could just look at that, please.
City manager said he'll look into it.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, didn't know that.
All right, appreciate it.
Yes, Victoria?
Okay, so you also have your council handbook. The changes were made regarding boards and commissions on page 15 that go along with these changes being made to city council advisory commissions. This is also your opportunity, if you so choose, to change anything else in your council handbook, but that's up to you. I don't have any changes to suggest.
Questions, comments? No, I don't have any comments for that. All right. No comments. No questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You'll see these come back for adoption by resolution at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We go to item Echo E, council executive report. Chuck?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you have your executive report dated January, February 2023. So some of the information, might be a little outdated. As you're aware, we're pretty much in our busiest time of year here. So spring is always busy, not only in terms of time we're spending on budget. Staff is also working on grant applications for the budget. Some of them we weren't successful at. We're going to take another swing at them. So we're working on those for budget inclusion. And obviously, Ms. Wilson's staff has a number of events coming up. So things are pretty busy, and obviously we're going to see some staffing and leadership changes moving forward as well. So that's taking up the bulk of my time, as well as working with CCOM. We haven't had a CCOM meeting yet for April. That'll be next week, and working through the administrative issues with the changes there as well. So a lot going on at this particular point in time. So the report is there and has a lot of good information in it, and you're welcome to ask me or any of the staff, questions with regards to it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did Judy or whoever did the markup, did they put the YouTube stats in there for William? Just like you didn't see that.
No, I saw it.
It's on your table. I just love that.
I gotta go back now and look.
I just think it's funny. But I like how you did, if you or your department, how you put this together and included, you're doing really well on Facebook. I had to read that 692,000 twice because, for your impressions, because I was like, there's no way, okay, almost 700,000. So, you're doing something right.
Those numbers are wrong.
The
Each
YouTube
one
numbers
needs
are
a
wrong?
zero behind them.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I always look forward to the executive report and the breakdown and all this stuff. My favorite thing in it this time was the Public Works outreach, where you guys went out to the schools and talked to them, and then the gifted programs kids from Palameus came and did like a tour and stuff, and the pictures. That was so cool. So that was my favorite thing. So thanks for doing that and sharing that. It's really cool.
I just want to say, I hope Public Works has a picture for the next executive report where you can put the mayor filling potholes. That is one for prosperity. No, I
Tell you,
appreciate the report.
Jeff had me working hard, I'm telling you. But he was most excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Sir, that's, I think, any more questions for city manager? All right. Report on recent trips, meetings, future meetings.
Well, Mark and I just returned from DC. I'll have the report for all of mayor and council. Hopefully in the next couple days. We got home and then immediately worked. But it's almost time. Yeah, I'm ready for you.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll have my trip report by our meeting. That way it'll be out there and we can post it wherever it needs to be posted, and share with everybody
He was
so
a
they can
good
enjoy the reading. It was a good trip. We had a lot of, it was good being on a national level, talking to other cities and towns, seeing what works, doesn't work for them, as opposed to our state league, which is good as well, but it's good to see the national perspective as well at that conference. And we got a chance to talk to our legislators in the area, talk to our congressmen and our senators, and kind of make sure they don't forget about us down here.
Yes, sir. Any other future meetings? think tomorrow we have a meeting with Kirsten Cinema, Juan Sexmani down in Bisbee, and on Friday we have the meeting at Service Chamber of Commerce with, again, with
Kelly.
Senator Mark Kelly.
You better be wearing the pin I gave him.
Yeah.
He did make sure to get him a pen. Yeah.
I'll
It's
make
like
sure.
the first thing.
Ask him.
Okay.
Ask him where the pin is Councilman Rodriguez gave him.
And if he doesn't have it on?
I'm gonna talk to him.
Okay, yes, sir. I appreciate it. For all the thousands that's watching on YouTube.
You stealing my
Not what
line.
page 2 says.
So, golf, future discussion items, Mr. Jory?
Thank you, Mayor McCaw. We've got 3 things so far for next work session. Your update on the Schneider Electric project. I'm working on getting your 18-month update on your strategic plan ready for that meeting. And then, again, as Jen mentioned, you've got your budget presentation on capital, personnel, and O&M.
Questions, comments,
Future stuff.
future stuff?
I have one future thing.
Yes.
All right, so we're doing a great job with our parks in the town, right? It's drawing a lot of people, a lot of sports, a lot of activities.
Yes, sir.
It's also drawing a lot of speeders. All right, so the PD's out there a lot. They get a lot of tickets, but they can't be everywhere. And I've noticed this, and I've got some feedback from our community on 2 parks in particular.
Oh, the Stone Park?
Always that one.
Yeah.
And now Sear Park with the soccer.
Oh.
People just speed right through there, and just youth crossing the streets, parents crossing the street with kids. It's getting to the point where it's getting dangerous, I feel. And I don't know, obviously, I don't want to spend $1 million on a traffic study where something we already know there's a problem, right? You can just look at the speeding tickets. I'm sure I parked the other day right there at Oscar Urine Center, and I just parked there, and they were just giving tickets left and right, and people were not. It's like fish in a barrel because they just keep doing it. Granted, there's only one sign when you go that way, so I don't know if that's would help or not. If we put more signs, if we put a blinking sign, I don't know, but a lot of feedback I get from the community is they want speed bumps around those parks. Maybe that's the idea. I don't know. I think it's something we could all look at or keep in mind that, yes, it's great. Our parks are getting a lot of attention, but people are not obeying speed limits, and it's dangerous for little kids that are out there crossing those streets, especially right here, Stone, and then in Sear Park.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see the same thing happen when we open our new football field as well, because that is going to get a lot more traffic as well. So it's something to keep in mind. Like I said, I talked to some officers, and they feel like they want to help, but they
Right.
can't be everywhere.
I understand. I had the discussion with Ms. Fassard about speed bumps, and probably you can have a discussion too.
I'll ask Ms. Fassar to convene the Traffic Safety Committee to look at some options.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other comments, questions? With that, we are adjourned.